Thank you for inviting me. My name is Ayaka Okamoto. I'm first grade of master course student in Japanese university. Um, my study field is architecture, and today I would like to talk about my capstone, a study on visual effects in living environment coexisting with dogs. This is the outline of my presentation. First, I'll explain about recent Japan's housing situation. And second, I'll introduce some previous studies and state my purpose. Then, I'll tell my summary and results of the paper. And lastly, I'll talk about the consideration and outlook for the future. In Japan, keeping pets was not common. The reason lies in the narrowness of Japan's land and housing. Compared to detached houses, the percentage of apartment is about 36%, and the average room size is 25 square meters per person. Thus, Japanese homes are built close together, making it difficult to call the environment quiet. In other words, it's probably not a comfortable place for animals with sensitive hearing like dogs. Also, urban residences rarely have gardens regardless their form. This means there is not enough space for pets to run around freely. In this way, Japanese housing a narrow, busy environment and less openness, so the environment is not set up for pets to live comfortably. Under such circumstances, the practice of keeping pets did not become widespread. However, the COVID-19 pandemic that began around 2020 sparked a pet boom in Japan. People have increasingly felt lonely as restrictions on their activities and increased time spent at home. More people have started keeping pets such as dogs and cats. Along with that, the number of apartments permitting pet ownership has also increased. In spite of this situation, the percentage stood at 19.3% in March this year. Companies specializing in pet cohabitation have emerged, but they face numerous problems, and it's still difficult to say that a sufficient environment has been established. Therefore, I think Japan needs to review its environment to ensure both people and pets can live in comfort. Ms. Kanemaki and her colleagues are conducting research focusing on the 5 senses of pets and humans. Here are 3 examples. The connection between stress and elements that stimulate the 5 senses, the relationship between everyday sounds and hearing, the tactical response to environmental changes such as flooring materials, temperature, and humidity. None of their research focused on vision. However, I believe that vision plays an important role in human and canine coexistence. So why wasn't canine vision considered? As shown in the slide, a dog's field of vision is only about 45 degrees, roughly 1/3 that of humans. Additionally, dogs can perceive fewer colors than humans. Given these factors that are difficult for humans to imagine, and it may be challenging to fully consider them. Even so, humans and dogs communicate through the visual information. Rather, it is precisely visual characteristics with different properties that require environmental support. Therefore, I set the objective of this study as clarifying the effects of environments that support communication through vision. And also, I expect this to enhance the quality of pet keeping spaces. So let's move on to the research summary. The survey period lasted approximately 2 weeks. I shared the survey which created with Google Forms through various ways, such as social media and street interviews, and I received 222 responses. The questions are listed on the right side, and based on the responses, I conducted tabulations and analysis. The questions are broadly categorized into 3 main types. Respondent attributes include basic information such as age and pet ownership rate, as well as items assessing respondent characteristics. For pet attributes, I have prepared fields to gather various information about the pet, such as age, sex, breed, size, and medical condition. In the question of home equipment, I prepared 6 items: door, window, kitchen, dog's feeding area, and toilet area, and dog's crate. For each item, I asked about the current setup, the ideal setup for living with dog, and the reasons for each choices. Here is the details of analysis. I conducted 4 techniques in this time. First, the simple tabulation aimed to confirm that the tabulation results matched the total number of responses and to identify the most frequently selected response for each question. Second, the purpose of cross-tabulation was to identify which combinations were most common for each question. And based on this tabulation, I made graphs. This allows us to interpret the response result as percentages, enabling more effective analysis. Lastly, the chess square test aimed to select responses suitable for analysis and identify general trends. Next, I will introduce 5 results that I set up in the question area. Regarding door options, most people chose full glass doors, considering damage and injury risks. For example, comparing visitor frequency with door choice revealed that households with frequent visitors were less likely to choose doors with large glass areas due to the risk of injury if a dog jumped up. When comparing with dog size, owners of small dogs chose full glass doors for better visibility at ground level, and owners of large dogs chose upper glass doors or non-glass doors, considering the risk of breakage or injury from a dog collecting to the door. Next, regarding windows. The survey presented 3 options: a wall-to-wall window, a window covering the upper portion of a wall, and a window covering one side of a wall. Most respondents chose the wall-to-wall window. Reasons cited included the sense of openness and natural light, indicating a tendency to prioritize human comfort. No clear differences were observed when comparing these results to questions about dog attributes, suggesting limited interest in how windows affect dogs' life. Next are the questions about the kitchen flooring. This time, I defined this area as off-limits to the dog. Most people chose the kitchen with a door at the entrance. Comparing dog ownership experience with kitchen selection, about 90% of people with no pet raising experience chose that kitchen, while only about half of those living with dogs did. This is the result of realizing that the keeper can communicate with their dogs and believed it could be restrained even without a partition. In the reason section, it was mentioned that kitchen counters or different flooring materials can be used as training markers. On the other hand, when comparing dog age and kitchen choices, owners of puppies and senior dogs preferred installing barriers. This suggests that the impact of effective support may vary depending on age. The section on dogs feeding area presented the diagram in the upper left, offering choices such as the back of the kitchen, beside a dining table, or corner of the living room. A free response field was also provided for respondents to indicate other preferred locations. The most frequently selected location was beside the dining table. However, this location is predicted to be hazardous for dogs. For instance, there is a risk of the dog bumped into the corners of the table or chairs while moving, or choking on food due to the haste, or accidentally eating humans' food. On the other hand, it became clear that this tendency is not widely known. Based on these results, it is considered necessary to raise awareness about dog behavior and to consider the optimal feeding location. For the dog's toilet area, I presented the floor plan shown in the upper left and offered the following option: between the dining room and living room, the corner of living room, or the hallway. I also provided the free response section for those preferring other locations to answer separately. Regarding toilet placement, those concerned about other preferred the hallway. Those prioritizing human traffic flow chose the corner of the living room, and those prioritizing the dog's movement selected the space between the dining and the living areas. Additionally, current dog owners tend to show greater understanding of canine habits, such as hidden locations and traffic flow, without being overly concerned about odor. Furthermore, placement tendencies based on the health condition of the cohabiting dog suggest that only owners demonstrated interest in where to place the dog's toilet. In other words, first-time dog owners don't know what factors to consider. The placement of a toilet within a space shared with dogs warrant further consideration and support. These are the conclusions for my paper. And this slide summarizes the results from before. The left side shows points all respondents considered, and the right side shows the difference condition they proposed. When selecting doors, safety for dogs was common consideration. However, since the injuries sustained vary depending on the dog's size, the responses also differed. With window section, many windows were selected for their openness and brightness. Also, testing revealed no correction under various conditions. Regarding the kitchen, perceptions of human convenience and the object used as training benchmarks were consistent. However, differences were observed in perceptions of communication with dogs and in effective equipment based on the dog's age. In the dog's feeding area, the common factor was that the risks associated with dogs were overlooked. Additionally, the tendency to choose the spot next to the dining table reflects a desire to share activity with the dog. This tendency was more pronounced among owners with older dogs, indicating a different basis on the number of years of dog ownership experience. Regarding toilet installation, responses varied significantly by item. Interest tended to be influenced by whether responses owned dogs or not, and also among dog owners, choices differed based on the dog's health condition. These are overview of the research findings. And these results serve as important guideline for creating pet-friendly housing. Considering these differences in visual perception, I will move forward to further explore designs that comprehensively address safety, visibility, and comfort. That's all for my presentation, and I'm grateful for your attention. Please feel free to share any comments or ask me a question. Thank you very much.